I'm Kesenya and welcome to another astrology weather report. Phew, what a big week last week was. It was enormous. There were so many shifts of energy, planets changing signs, conjunctions and things that were really quite significant. And so big was last week's energy, the shift, that I actually neglected to talk about the most important configuration. I've been looking for it and watching for it for a long time now, but I have to admit, we astrologers, we sometimes slip up. We're human beings. And I missed talking about Saturn conjunct the South Node. Silly me. However, it's probably played out for the best. Everything for a reason. There is great synchronistic timing to the way the world works, including my stuff-ups with regards to astrology weather reports. So last week I neglected to mention that in the sky we had, and will continue to have all this week, Saturn conjunct the South Node. This is an energy we've all been waiting for. In fact, I've been looking for this one since Pluto conjuncted the South Node, and I talked a great deal at length about that in one of my other videos. And so this is like the second chapter of the book, so to speak. First chapter was Pluto, and now the second chapter in this story is Saturn. But let me tell you, there are many more chapters to come. These two, Saturn, Pluto, these three rather, Saturn, Pluto and the South Node, are going to be tangoing together in the sky for a good portion of this year. So the story has only just begun. So yeah, that's the focus I'm going to be taking this week. We're not going to look at any of the other energies playing out, and there are other energies playing out, there always are, but this is the big daddy of them all, the big influence. So what has been happening? Well, Pluto and the South Node, just to recap for those who missed my earlier video a couple of weeks ago, Pluto and the South Node have been conjunct for a little while now, since the beginning of April, or the 31st of March rather, in Capricorn. Now, there's been, because both of these planets symbolize purging, releasing, letting go, composting, excreting, flushing down the loo, getting rid of stuff that is not serving us. And of course, wherever the South Node is involved, the aim of the South Node is to let go of what is not helping us and direct our energy towards the North Node, and the North Node is our destiny point. It's what we're rising up into. It's the energy that we are here to master in this incarnation. It's what we're learning all about because it's unfamiliar on a personal level to us. We don't know, we don't quite know how to handle the North Node energy in our natal chart, not in the transiting chart at the moment, but in your natal chart. The North Node represents the energy you're mastering, that you are learning to rise up into. It's your destiny point. What you're rising up to become is seen by the North Node. It's a very powerful point. Equally, the South Node is powerful too. It's powerful about helping us let go of our karma and the wounds of our soul, particularly when it's conjunct with Pluto. Pluto represents the soul. And so there's this whole energy that's been playing out for the month of April about composting, purging, pooing out, getting rid of what is not helping you rise up into your North Node destiny, whatever that happens to be in your chart. And of course, it's very cyclical because everything in astrology works on cycles, mathematical cycles. So Pluto and the South Node, they haven't been conjunct for about 19 years, and last time they were conjunct it wasn't in the sign of Capricorn. So this is a fresh experience from that perspective, Pluto and the South Node conjuncting in Capricorn. But let's halve that 19-year cycle. Roughly 9 years ago, what was happening in your life? The last time that Pluto made a connection with the node, 9 years ago, it was with the North Node. And this did happen in Capricorn. Capricorn represents hierarchical structures, systems of belief, systems of, structural concepts in our mind even. The way our life is structured, the way we think life has to be. It's our social status is Capricorn. In order to have social status, I must do X, Y, Z. It's also connected to big authority systems as well. So what authority system on a personal level have you been reshaping, redefining? And because Saturn is there at the moment, restructuring. Saturn is restructuring the systems of hierarchy within yourself, your attitudes, your beliefs, the imposed structural belief systems that have come from maybe your culture or your community. This is very, Capricorn energy is very connected to our lineages and the patriarchal system that we have grown up in, and sort of the legacy that's been given to us from the people who've gone before us. This axis, Capricorn Cancer, is very much about tradition. So any type of traditions that have been handed down to you through family, through community, through culture, these sorts of hierarchical authority systems that have come and been handed down. That's what we see in Capricorn. So back to the cyclical thing. Let's the nodes take 19 years to go around the chart. So back in 2010, which was 9 years ago, Pluto and the North Node were here in the early degrees of Capricorn. And so that is obviously the halfway point from where the nodes are now. So the North Node essentially, let's give an actual physical example so you can see what I mean instead of confusing the heck out of you. Back in 2010, the North Node was up here, and this little planet Pluto, whoopsie, was here with it. All right, and then in the 9 years since then, this guy was down here. In the 9 years since then, Pluto has only moved this far. That's as far as he's gone. Okay, he hasn't moved very far because he's very slow. Therefore, his energy is extraordinarily powerful because he moves so slowly through the horoscope. In that time, in the last 9 years, this node, the North Node, has moved down to here, and at the same time, the South Node has moved up to here. Okay, so we are at a halfway cycle. In another 9 years, these two nodes, they will reverse again. And then another 9 years, reverse again, and so on, because it's cyclical. It takes 19 years for the North Node, roughly 18 to 19 years, for the North Node to go the whole way around. So 8 to 9 years is the halfway point. And so 9 years ago, we had the opposite nodal system playing out with Pluto. Let me make Pluto a little clearer. And so you've got to think, what was happening in my life? If this is reflecting as above, so below, if this is reflecting what is going on for me personally as well as collectively, what was happening in your life in 2010 that might have given you something that you needed to work on for the next subsequent 9 years. In essence, it's kind of like the full moon phase of whatever energy began back then. The full moon in the chart, as you can see here, the full moon occurs whenever the moon is opposite the sun. Whoopsie, sorry, we're up here. The moon is opposite the sun. Now when we have a new moon, it's here. The moon and the sun are together. New moon, 2 weeks later, so halfway through the cycle, the moon is full. Okay? And then another 2 weeks, the moon goes smaller, 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 and we get a new moon again. And then 2 weeks after that, this is how it goes every month. We get a new moon, a full moon, and so on, around and around and around we go, cyclical. Same thing here, we're kind of at the full moon phase, which is the harvest phase, the reaping phase, the reward for what was sown phase. So back here in 2010, you've got to consider, what did I start? What did I establish? What happened? What was purged and gotten rid of? Pluto, wounds of the soul, what was I dealing with? Pluto is the wounds of the soul. What happened in my life that was addressing perhaps soul wounds that I carry, either from this life or from a past life? Well, this represents then what we are called to purge. Now, I'm going to give you an example from my life. I'm not asking for pity with this example. It's just part of the story. 9 years ago, and I've mentioned this in videos before, so if you've heard me talk about this, bear with me for those who have not heard this illustration. But 9 years ago, my marriage ended, and I elected to leave my husband, but things had been dead for a long time, and really neither of us was invested in the relationship any longer, but I was the one to instigate leaving. And this happened because, and part of the reason I chose to do this, and there was a few different reasons and factors why the relationship ended, but one of the big ones internally for me was the fact that I had for many, many years felt like an extension of my husband's ego, not loved for who I was as a person, or seen for who I was. I was there to support him, be Priscilla to his Elvis, be the one who was, you know, there to push him around in a wheelchair when he got old in his old age. I was in service to him, and that was my fault, because I fully felt that in order to be loved, I had to give up my own dreams, my own self, and be what he wanted me to be in order to be loved. And so it was my fault, and I take full responsibility for that bad attitude that then led me to feel, you know, that I wasn't loved in that circumstance, and that he didn't love me. Yeah, so the relationship lasted 10 years, and then it ended in 2010. Now, throughout this ensuing 9-year period, I've been doing a lot of growing, as we do, and a lot of purging, a lot of releasing of the old way of who I was, and a lot of stepping into my own, you know, a little bit further up the evolutionary ladder, so to speak. We're never at the top, but we can step up little rungs as life goes on. So fast forward to now, and this year the South Node has conjuncted Pluto. So we are seeing a repeat of certain patterns that we may have seen established in 2010. For me, I was told by my parents that I was not welcome in their home while I practiced astrology. I was told I was arrogant, and a few other not very nice things as well. And so I elected to say, well, that's it. I'm not going to, you know, I don't need to see you again if that's how you feel about me, and if that's the dynamic of our relationship. And again, I was reminded, you know, with that relationship ending, which hasn't been easy, but we all go through times when these sorts of things arise in our life, or we can do, if that's our karma to do so. But the similarity here is that my upbringing had led me to believe that I'm the eldest child, and my upbringing had led me to believe that in order to be loved, I had to please. I had to please my parents, and it didn't matter that my passion was astrology, or that my interest was in the stars since I was little. You know, I must be pleasing to my parents, to my mother, that I must do things that make her proud. The thing is that, as with my husband, they were never able to be proud of who I was, or love the real me, because I was an extension of their ego. I was a reflection of who they are, and if I wasn't living the life they expected that I should live, being the person they expected me to be, then I was not worth loving. If you practice astrology, we can't love you. We can't have you in this family. Your life, I was told that your life doesn't please us, Kesenya, and that's fine. They're allowed. They're on their own karmic soul journey. I have no animosity about that whatsoever. We're both on our own trajectory. It just so happens the trajectory's gone this way, and I've learned so much, because now, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this illustration. You might find a correlation, you know, or be able to start seeing links in your own life through me sharing this illustration, and that's why I share it, not to ask for poor me or anything, because I don't consider it a poor me situation. I consider myself blessed and empowered beyond words, really. So the comparison here is that I have always felt that I need to give up myself and who I am in order to be loved. And I can correlate what happened in 2010 with what happened in 2019, and I can see the link in these two relationships. And therefore, I know what to purge. I know what Pluto is wanting to excrete. This perhaps quite karmic attitude that I cannot be me and be loved. And so that is what I have been dealing with. And it correlates very much to the placement of the South Node in my natal chart. What about you? What are you purging from 2010 that there's a link to in 2019? What have you been working on, even subconsciously? Pluto rules the subconscious. What have you been working on that needs to be purged and excreted and gotten rid of to enable you to rise, to enable you to be empowered and step up that evolutionary soul ladder that you're on, or up the spiral, however you want to describe it? So this is what whatever it is, this is what we're leaving, this is what we're composting. Now we get to that's what I talked about in my recent Pluto video. Now we're getting to the work that continues, essentially. The work's not done. This is just the first chapter. This is just the beginning. We're now moving into the second chapter of the story. And like I said, there's going to be many chapters that make up this novel or this work of fiction or non-fiction, however you want to view it. There's many chapters that are going to be unfolding for us on a personal level, and I'm talking personally, not collectively with this video. This year with Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node making a song and dance. So this karmic cleanse does not happen overnight. And that is because Saturn's involved. Hello, Saturn is Father Time. He will take his time. He is slow moving. Anybody who's got Saturn or can feel Saturn in their chart knows that he restricts and makes and blocks and makes us wait for whatever area of life he is impacting. And so we have to be patient with Saturn because he doesn't rush. He likes things to be done with hard work and diligence and perseverance over a long period of time, so we appreciate what happens, and so we make sure it's done properly. No slapdash haphazard kind of bang bang bang, there you go, it's done. It is going to be done properly with Saturn. Okay, so it's going to take time to get this karmic cleanse that's going on right. Saturn, he is the karma of fear, whereas Pluto is the karma of trauma. Now the two are quite obviously linked, but even in mythology these two are linked. In mythology, Saturn was the father of Pluto, along with the father of Neptune and Jupiter. So all those planets in the outer realm of the solar system, they've all been fathered by Saturn, and the father of Saturn was Uranus. So really, essentially, Uranus is the big granddaddy, and the rest, they're all they're all the lineage. They're all the future generations, so to speak. Uranus is the granddaddy. Then there's Saturn, and then there's Saturn's children, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto. So they are linked, Saturn and Pluto. Saturn is the father of Pluto. The fear is perhaps the father of our trauma. Saturn is fear, Pluto is trauma, especially in karmic astrology readings. So what does that mean? The two are connected. Pluto represents where we are preoccupied, what we're preoccupied with, what we're obsessed with. That's what Pluto is representative of. Pluto is also resistance to necessary change, as said by Jeff Green. You know, he's where we resist change that needs to happen. But if we, with Pluto, and we're just coming out, well, we're going to be tangoing with Pluto energy this year, if we allow change to come into our life, if we don't cling on to, say, for me, if I don't cling on to this, no, I always have to give up myself to be loved. You know, I will repeat relationship after relationship after relationship where I give up myself and my needs and my desires in order to be loved. If I keep repeating that because I won't let that thought go, I won't let that attitude go, who's going to suffer? Who's going to get trauma? Me. Pluto trauma. So if we are resisting the change that wants to happen, then that is going to mean Pluto comes in and absolutely tears us apart with the need to change. The change happens in, you know, sickening ways sometimes, in horrific, traumatic ways, because we are determined to cling to our stupid old mindsets that aren't serving us. But if we allow the change to come in, if we say, yep, I recognize that I always need to give up myself in order to be loved, and that's it, no more relationships where I'm giving up myself, my needs, my hobbies, my interests, my desires, no more. It's about me now. You know, that's my journey, but yours will be different. But I recognize what the trauma is that keeps repeating, that's holding me back. Pluto goes, aha, okay, I don't need to tear her apart. She's got it. She knows what she's doing. Oh, look, she's doing therapy to heal that. Oh, she's doing her dance, you know, therapy dance class, or she's doing her art therapy class, or she's meditating daily, or whatever kind of therapy you're employing to get rid of this old structure. Capricorn is old structures and mindsets and stuff that we have inherited oftentimes. If you're doing the therapy to deal with that, Pluto's like, right, she's doing it, she's on it, right, good. The energy's good there. I don't need to tear her apart. Clinging to something, fighting it, trying to hang on to it, to whatever needs to be changed, is only going to bring you trauma. Imprint that in your mind. It's so important to help you through this coming year ahead. Now, to Saturn. As I said, he represents our fears, okay? particularly our karmic fears. Wherever he sits in your chart, there is some kind of Saturn fear, and he will put surrounding you, like a father kind of does, he is father time after all, he will put boundaries and restrictions around that area of life. The house in whole sign astrology where he sits, he will put boundaries around that area of life, preventatives around that area of life that are the result of fears that you've had from a past lifetime. Okay, let's explore this. For example, and people who've had karmic readings with me have probably heard me use this illustration, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but you're in the 1920s or 30s whenever they were constructing the Empire State Building in New York, and it's like one of the first skyscrapers ever, and you're so excited, and you get the chance to go up to the top of the Empire State Building. You go out on the balcony, you're looking around, oh my God, isn't this fantastic? How amazing is this? Oh my God, look over there. Oh, look at those little people way down below, and poof, you fall off the Empire State Building. Crazy, stupid analogy, I know, but you fall off the Empire State Building, you plummet to your death, end of life. Then you reincarnate into, say, this life. And for some reason that you cannot explain, it's just there, you don't know why, but you are petrified of heights. No way, I'm not going out on that balcony. I can't stand it. I don't know what it is, but I feel sick if I go out on the balcony. No, I'm not looking over the edge of that glass bottom platform at the Eureka sky deck. No, not going to do that. Not going out on the Grand Canyon Circle Walk or whatever it is. I cannot stand heights, and you can't explain why. That is Saturn. That is karmic Saturn putting a fear in place in your life because of a past life trauma, a past life incident that put the fear of God into you. So wherever Saturn sits in our chart is usually the fears that we will carry. Now, you know, that one that I just explained, that might be a first house Saturn placement fear, because the first house is connected to how we thrive and survive, and obviously falling off the Empire State Building is not going to enable you to thrive or survive. So there's a fear for your own life with Saturn in the first house, and you might be afraid of many things, afraid of drowning, afraid of dying in a car crash or something like that you can't explain, and it's coming from this karmic fear, maybe Saturn in the first house, for example. I'm going to go through each sign where Saturn is and just give some, you know, hypothetical examples of what fears you might be facing, but it's going to be different with everyone, because what will play out is very much connected to the nodes, the South Node and the North Node, and also to Pluto. They're all karmic points, and or the South Node is anyhow, and Pluto is trauma, and so that really, if you're looking at particular psychological hang-ups and things, you need to look at all three of those. But I will go through at the end of this video and look at the particular fears that we might be grappling with Saturn in each individual house. But that's what Saturn represents karmically. And Pluto and Saturn, like I said a little moment ago in this reading, Pluto and Saturn are mythologically connected, and they are also connected for us on a personal experiential level. So the South Node has done this little dance with Pluto for the last couple of weeks, purging, getting rid of, excreting, with an intent to compost this pattern that we've seen in our lives since 2010, for example. And so this has been going on, and the purging is happening, and the future, the long-term future with this, is going to be empowerment, but there's a fair bit of smelly, dirty, yucky composting to go on, and plumbing that needs happening, and whatever, you know, it's like we've got gastro, karmic gastro that's going to be happening for the rest of this year. So it's not a walk in the park yet, but we've started on the story. And now this connection with the South Node and with the South Node and with Saturn, we're going to actually get to the root cause of the problem. You know, we've purged the experiences, we've come to the conclusion, we've brought out into the light, okay, this is my problem, this is my karmic issue that I want to get rid of and not keep repeating in my life. That's what Pluto's done. And Saturn South Node is saying, let's see what's at the root of this. What is the fear, Saturn, that is, you know, that is at the cause of all this trauma. So for me, you know, as I said, my story is I've always felt that I need to give up who I am in order for someone else to be loved, where I'm serving, I'm martyring myself, I'm overgiving to somebody else to inflate their ego, to make them feel good, to make them look good, or to please them and reflect well on them according to the parameters that they want to have. That's been my problem. What is the fear? The fear is that I won't be loved unless I become what someone else wants. So this is the fear of not being loved for who I am. And so this conjunction of the South Node and Saturn is now causing us all to address our fears. What fear are you dealing with that is being illustrated for you through this Pluto South Node conjunction? Quite honestly, people have been, you know, fearing this interaction for a long time in astrological circles. If you are working with this energy, there is nothing to fear. There is only empowerment. There is only beauty. There is only up-leveling and evolving and enlightenment as you leave shitty karma behind and embrace better things for your soul and for your earthly life. So I encourage each of you to work with this energy. So we are getting rid of now that Saturn's really got involved, we're getting rid of the fears that are at the core of all this stuff. Our fears are what stops us from rising into our destiny. And okay, there might be legitimate fears of falling off the Empire State Building. You know, they might be legitimate fears, but really our soul work this incarnation is to leave behind the karmic fears of Saturn so that we can move out into the world, into our destiny. Now think about it. Saturn is like the old man, or let's say the father in the horoscope. And here's the dad sitting at home in his old, you know, in his big leather chair with his paper, or in these days maybe his iPad on his knee. And he says to his, you know, 15-year-old son, 16-year-old son, now look, you can go to that party, but you better be home by, I want you home by 10:30. Don't you go staying out till 3 o'clock with all those wild kids. You come home by 10:30. So that's Saturn. He's the dad. He's the father figure in the horoscope. So he actually wants you to be responsible. He wants you to be mature. He wants you to grow, but he does it in a very sort of strict, disciplinary, father-like way. So essentially what's happening here with our fears is we've got these blockages in our life because he wants to protect us from harming ourselves again. But sooner or later, we're going to have to grow up and overcome these fears and get rid of these fears so that we can be free. You know, this 15-year-old, 16-year-old doesn't want to be told at age 30, you better be home by, you know, be home by 10:30, no staying out till 3 in the morning. By that age, you don't want that anymore. There comes a time when we have to level up and grow up and shed the fears that Saturn has put in place. Unfortunately, it can take time. When Saturn puts fears in place, then, you know, we learn the lessons from the restriction. You know, when things take a long time to manifest for us, then we learn to treasure them more when they do evolve in our lives. So let's take a look at where Saturn sits for you and what might be then playing out. Not in this transiting chart, but let's take a look in your personal chart, what Saturn in a certain house might be representing fear-wise that you need to grow up from and leave behind. Well, I've given an illusion and sort of an allegory, of what it might look like for people with Saturn sitting in their first house in whole sign astrology, and I underline in whole sign astrology. I'm not using Placidus division system. This is whole sign astrology. So please look at your chart through the eyes of whole sign astrology as we describe this. If you've got Saturn sitting in your first house, that means the first sign, your rising sign. If you have Saturn there, then you have a fear of survival. How am I going to survive? How am I going to make ends meet? You know, am I going to die early by falling off the Empire State Building before my time? Am I, you know, do I have what it takes to survive in this incarnation? These are where the fears are going to be. Fears of being able to survive. Fears of being able to, you know, it's not even fear of having enough. That's not what it is. It's fear of being able to even just live, you know. People born into war-torn countries or refugees and these sorts of things in terrible circumstances, their fear is survival. You know, how are we going to get from one day to the next? We're very blessed here that the intensity of that Saturn fear is not quite the same when we're in comfortable circumstances. But we can still have a fear of how we're going to survive as well. Even if you're very well off and affluent, you might still have a fear of the rug being pulled out from under you and the ability to survive being taken from you at some point. So, you know, look within, look deep and think, okay, what fears have I got that are holding me back in life regarding my ability to thrive and survive and succeed in life? You can also have a fear with Saturn here about the body, your body not, you know, fear of your health failing you, or fear of your body not, you know, giving you what you need to be able to survive again. So watch for those sorts of things and explore, you know, this is all about exploring deep. And when Pluto is involved in this mix, when Pluto's involved, we got to go deep and we've got to look for patterns and look for similarities. So look for ways that you might fear not being able to survive, or fear your body failing you, or have fear about your general ability to move through this lifetime when you have Saturn in the first house. Saturn in the second house, fear, it's quite obvious this one, fear of not having enough resources, not having enough money, not having enough food, not having enough you know, clothing or shelter. These are the basic necessities of life. These are the resources we need to support our body's journey through this incarnation. And so the fear is, I don't have enough. And so we often see people with Saturn in the second house clinging. They're like, you know, no, I've got to hang on to my money. I've got to be tight with my money, and, you know, because it could be taken away from me at any moment. And this is quite often coming from a karmic experience when you've lost everything. And so you've now got a fear of losing everything and being poor. Saturn in the second house is often connected with being poor. So there can even be manifestation of you not being able to create big wealth for yourself, or at least, you know, have an influx of money with Saturn in the second house, because there's this subconscious fear of you know, of not having enough that's blocking you actually moving into having that, if you understand what I mean there. So there's a fear around resources, and when we fear something, we can tend to attract that to us. We fear not having enough money, so we attract poverty. We've got to change our mindsets in order to free us. This is what I'm talking about, in order to be able to have a better life and rise into our destiny. So first house, if you've got a fear of survival, you might be attracting circumstances into your life that cause you to have to struggle to survive. Second house, you might have a fear of poverty that's attracting, you know, a feeling of poverty mindset. You know, I have to hang on to every last dollar I make because I'm terrified it's going to be taken away from me, and you just wallow in this spirit of poverty that needs to go. Just a note aside for people with Saturn in the second house, if you know, they can accomplish great you know, material wealth through long persevering, working hard, you know, diligence, maturity and responsibility regarding money. So it can, you know, it can happen, but these lessons usually, like I described, usually will unfold as Saturn releases his grip of restriction and blockage the older that we get. So the older you get with Saturn in the second house, the more you're going to be able to accumulate wealth, and you'll do it through perseverance and determination. Okay, like I said, if something is held back from us through Saturn's blockage, we learn to treasure it more. Okay, it doesn't mean we can't achieve these things in life, but we learn to treasure these things more. If you've got Saturn in the third house, well, the blockage is going to be on around being able to communicate. This is the fear that I can't speak my truth, I can't share my heart, I can't communicate effectively enough, I can't learn enough. There's a real fear with Saturn in the third house, or if Saturn is with Mercury, of not being able to be smart enough, not having enough knowledge. And so you fear putting yourself out in the world because your knowledge is not, you think your knowledge is not extensive enough. There's real perfectionism around your knowledge and your acquisition of knowledge and your ability to communicate. So you fear communicating, you fear not being intelligent enough, not being smart enough with this placement. So that's the fear for Saturn in the 3rd house. The fear for Saturn in the 4th house, family blockage, family restrictions. So fear of not pleasing the family, fear of not being able to escape really family karma. You know, you might want to, but there's a fear of, if I leave this family nest, if I leave this family mindset, this family attitude, this family belief system, or whatever, you know, this lineage that I've been in. Say you've been, you know, let's just use an example. Say you've been brought up in Poland or something like that, and you're afraid to leave Poland, even though you know if you go and live in XYZ country, life might be fabulous for you there, but you're afraid to leave the country of origin, your family of origin, your heritage, your roots, your lineage. There can be a fear of moving out in life when Saturn is in the 4th house. But like I said, the grip can be released as you get older, and as you learn to treasure the idea of being able to move out in the world, being able to freely, you know, get out in society, so to speak, and leave the roots, the heritage, the lineage behind to empower your future. So that's Saturn in the 4th house. Saturn in the 5th house, this is my placement, and again, probably my illustration is a very good one. The fear of not being loved for who you are. The 5th house is, you know, our creative expression in the world, who we are. It's like it's connected to the idea of Leo. Love me for who I am. 5th house. And with Saturn in the 5th house, there's a fear of not being loved for who you are. So you please, you people please, you project, you know, you serve other people, you lift up other people because you're afraid you won't be loved. Very Leo type energy, this 5th house, obviously. And so this is one of the major fears for people with Saturn in the 5th house, a fear of not being loved for who they are, so they transform themselves into what they think other people need. So there are variations on all of these, naturally enough, but this is one of them. 5th house Saturn placement can prolong, like you might not have boyfriends or love or relationships in your life until much later in life. 5th house is one of those placements where we see that happening. Yeah, so that can be a challenge if your heart's really set on having a love relationship. But again, wherever Saturn is, things are restricted and blocked. They take longer to manifest, and the longer something takes to manifest for us, the greater we treasure it and value it when it eventually does come. And usually, unless Saturn has hideous aspects or is smashed beyond compare in the chart, we can achieve these things. If we work with these energies, we can achieve the release of Saturn's grip eventually in life, and later in life we do sometimes see ourselves getting the rewards of Saturn, in this case Saturn in the 5th house. Saturn in the 6th house, there is a fear of not being perfect. 6th house is very self-critical. It's about being, it's perfectionism. It's about being enough. When Saturn is here, we are afraid that we are not enough, that we are not perfect, and we need to be a better person. We need to be, you know, more this, that, or the other in order to have a better life. And so we're constantly self-critical. We're restricting our happiness essentially by being really down on ourselves. And Saturn in the 6th house is a signature that can manifest into depression if we're not careful, and if there are other factors in the chart that are involved in this. So if you have Saturn in the 6th, your health, your not only mental health but your overall health can be restricted and blocked as well. And this might be coming, often we see physical manifestations in our body are a result of fears that are deep. And so if you've got Saturn in the 6th house, this process we're all going through now, this is going to be one of the things that liberates you and can help you overcome health problems as you deal with the core fear at the bottom of the issue. So maybe there's fear regarding health, but usually it's got fear to do with self-punishment, self-criticism, not being enough, not being worthy, very 6th house. And you know, we can see people with Saturn in the 6th house attracting poverty, because poverty is a 6th house thing as well. The 6th house is where we make money to pay the bills, so it's connected to income in a sense. So yeah, we can have poverty here too, we can have disease, we can attract these things, but it's coming from this mindset of fear around, I don't have enough, I am not enough, I am not perfect enough, and then we attract situations where we aren't enough, where well, you know, theoretically we feel like we aren't enough, or we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough health and well-being. So by purging these fears, the South Node is to do with purging, we can help our 6th house Saturn. I will give remedies actually at the end of this video, so if you've stuck with me through all these, you will get the reward at the end, very Saturnian style. If you do the hard work and stick with it, you get the reward, and I'll give you some remedies for Saturn at the end of this video. Saturn in the 7th house, well, obviously the fear is around relationship. The fear is connected to being able to partner effectively, and you might have like a mindset that's very much, you know, I'm not worthy of relationship, or I'm afraid of relationship. Maybe you had a past incarnation where you were abused, or you were not treated fairly, or there was some other problem or issue relationally. It wasn't an equal partnership. The 7th house is very much the essence of Libra, which is about harmony and balance and being in equality with a partner. And maybe you were in a past incarnation where you were subservient to your partner, or you were married off as a child bride or something like that. And there was just this essence of yuck about a past relationship and fear in a past relationship. And now there is a fear of relationship and fear of commitment. Fear of commitment with a Saturn in the 7th house. And we know, you know, we read stories quite a lot about people who are afraid to commit. And it's a legitimate thing. We shouldn't judge people when they have that fear, because really they're probably playing out Saturn in the 7th house, and there's some karmic issue there that's preventing them from entering into a committed relationship from a past lifetime of trauma. So, you know, knowing astrology just really removes all judgment. You cannot condemn someone for the soul journey that they are currently on. You know, we don't know what they've experienced in a past life that's now manifesting for them in this life. So if you're with someone who, you know, can't commit, don't beat up on them about it. Just move on and find someone who can, because seriously, you don't need to waste your time on that, and they've got to sort out their karmic problems. Look after yourself first. See how I've grown through mine? It's all about looking after you so that then you can be, you know, in good dynamic. Pluto, Saturn, South Node, it really is working. So here the fear is around relationship, and you know, there might be restriction and blockage towards having a relationship until later in life because of Saturn here, and this is because the grip of fear is there. I can't commit. And even if you want relationship and you desire relationship, there might be some sort of subconscious fear or attitude buried deep within you that needs to come out and be resolved so that you can have relationship. You need to absolve the fear that is attracting no relationship into your life, you know, attracting people who can't commit, or attracting loneliness and isolation and not partnership that you really want. We need to get rid of the fears so that we can you know, attract what we really do want in our lives. But it takes a lot of introspection. So if we have Saturn natally in the 8th house, well, the fear is a bit similar to the 7th house, but it's a fear of intimacy, and a fear of that's intimacy on every level, sexually, emotionally, you know, and just being completely naked with a partner. I'm not talking physically naked, although that is part of it and a lot of fun, but it's actually about being really truly soul naked with a partner, about being real with a partner. So there can be restriction and blockage sexually, obviously. That's probably the most noticeable one, but really deep down, when Saturn's in the 8th house, the blockage is an intimacy one, not just a sexual one. So the sexual problems, they're just the physical manifestation of the fear below. And this can be, it's very, very karmic to have Saturn in the 8th house. The fear is usually quite a traumatic one. So often tied to maybe abuses, maybe you were a little boy who was sold into sex slavery or something as a very young child, and so therefore you've now incarnated here with you're absolutely petrified of intimacy because it only meant horror and trauma for you in a past life. Just an example. So that being the case, if you do have Saturn fear here, you really do need to do therapy. And you can go and see a psychologist. That's certainly one avenue, but there are many avenues of therapy open to you. The 8th house, it rules therapy. It's about therapy. So you get yourself to a good therapist, or do some sort of process work or meditation or anything that works for you regarding purging that karma. I would really encourage past life regression if you're up for it, and if you've got a regressionist that you can trust. And I'd also recommend, if you can find a psychic surgeon, excellent for karmic past life wounds and trauma. Really, really good. If you don't know of a psychic surgeon, I hope it's all right to mention this here, but one of my dear friends that here in Australia does psychic surgery by distance. He's gifted. He is blessed by the gods with this shamanic ability to heal karmic wounds, especially of the sexual kind. So if this is you and you know something's got to shift and you've tried and you can't shift it, send me a message and I'll put you on to this guy because he can really help. So yeah, letting go of the fear of intimacy is a big one. Saturn in the 8th house. Saturn in the 9th house, there can be a fear maybe of gurus, maybe of people who are in a position of mentorship or inspiration. And that might sound odd to be afraid of these people, but if we think about, I mean, there's many instances over the last century where people have aligned themselves to a guru and they've turned out to be a completely dodgy dealer. You know, I'm just struggling to think of names as I'm speaking here, but you know, there's been suicide cults, there's been false teachers who who have preached a certain message and then, you know, they're doing the dirty and not living what they preached behind closed doors. You know, there's been priests and pedophilia. There's been, you know, ashram leaders and pedophilia. That, like, it just goes on and on and on. Unfortunately, that we can see these sorts of things happening, and it's been going on since like forever. Obviously, there's going to be karma there. Fear of a guru, fear of being exploited by somebody who you revered and put in a position of honor. So this is one of the restrictions in the 9th house. There might also be fears relating to, you know, the ability to go and learn something new. It's a bit similar to the 3rd house. Am I going to be smart enough? Do I have what it takes to go and study XYZ, you know, course at university? So this can be a fear of going and educating yourself, fear of getting out in the world and traveling to other places and experiencing other places. That's going to help you grow, that's going to help your mind just go woof, open up to other cultures. So there can be a real fear, and this might be coming from maybe a past life where you were on some, I don't know, boat of pilgrims headed for America and it sank in the middle of the ocean, and you were all G'd up to go and explore new lands and establish new things, and you didn't even get there. So there can be a fear about going and exploring new lands, and so these sorts of fears from karma that can now play out. Are you afraid to expand your mind because something horrible happened in a past life? What's the deep inner trauma regarding expanding your mind, and in the 9th house also connected to guru figures? Are you afraid to seek spiritual wisdom and advice from other people because last time you did that, you ended up in a suicide cult, you know? So this is where you might have to dig deep. What are my fears regarding influential people? What are my fears regarding moving out of my comfort zone? What are my fears regarding my intelligence? What are my beliefs that aren't serving me and aren't helping me rise up in life regarding my ability and my knowledge and my wisdom? 9th house is our intelligence and belief systems as well. Do I have fears around belief systems? Saturn in the 10th house, well, it's fear of authority figures, you know. Maybe, you know, you keep attracting bosses who treat you like shit because at the base of things, you're afraid, or you have a belief system that says, I only ever attract bosses who treat me like shit. And why is that? Why do you have this fear of you know, being treated as a worthy person in the workplace? Why are you afraid of having the promotion? Like, is there something at the core of you where there is you know, your thought processes and your belief systems that is preventing you from getting that promotion, that is preventing you from becoming the authority figure, and rising up and having your aspirations come true? Like the 10th house is where it's the legacy we want to leave, the legacy that we want to leave the world. And so when we have this fear, we can in the 10th house, it's afraid of being able to leave the legacy we want, afraid that we're not, you know, clever enough to leave the legacy we want, or a fear of authority. Maybe that's come from a past life where authority figures were really revolting. You know, maybe, I don't know, you were beaten up by a cop or some other authority figure, and now you're afraid of authority figures, and you keep attracting these authority figures that treat you like crap. And the truth is, it's being attracted to you because of this Saturnian fear that is within you. So maybe this is what the Pluto-Saturn South Node conjunction is making you address, these deep down fears about authority figures and about your capacity to rise up into having social status, being visible in the world, being seen, and achieving the legacy that you long to leave for the rest of the you know, the generations to come. 11th house, it's getting darker. I'm just noticing I've got a light. I've got a little light. I'm so glad I set it up on my computer there to make sure I didn't, it's getting dusk now, so I'm so glad I did that. But the light's a bit, I'm just looking, it's a bit raw, a bit funny. Anyhow, we'll keep going. The Saturn in the 11th house, well, this can be fear of collective retribution, collective trauma. When we have Saturn in the 11th house, it's often it's been seen in past life regressions that people have had wounds inflicted to them, or to their soul, or to their experience through big groups of people. Like you would imagine Marie Antoinette, when she is reincarnated in the next life, would have Saturn in the 11th house. Collective you know, trauma inflicted by a group of people, by people rising up and saying, hey, we want to eat here, you know, so off with your head. So there's many instances of that where the group, the collective, the hoi polloi have risen up and said no more, and inflicted trauma. And this can be not just trauma to the aristocracy, it could be trauma to you know, to your fellow man, just essentially. Like, I mean, Nazi Germany, prime example there, of a group of people rising up, the SS and the, you know, Nazi party, inflicting trauma to their fellow German citizens. So this trauma inflicted by a collective of people. So there might be a fear here then with Saturn in the 11th house about being part of the group, fitting in, being part of a collective movement even. There may be even fear of friendships, because maybe friends betrayed you in a past incarnation. So there can be fear of establishing healthy, much needed friendships with Saturn. So there's a restriction and a blockage where Saturn is regarding, say, friendships or involvement with groups. So you need to go within and look at, okay, what are my fears that I keep attracting these sort of situations regarding friends who treat me like rubbish, or I always seem to attract friends who I can't trust, or friends who deceive me, or friends who let me down. This is the house of friendship. What are the repeating patterns with friends? And what is the fear at the bottom of all these repeating patterns? What's the fear you carry? Are you afraid that, you know, you're afraid to trust your friends? Are you afraid to get close to people? Are you afraid to you know, have meaningful relationships with people, so you distance yourself and you stay detached? So look at what is the fear at the core of this, and if you can purge that fear, then you stand a wonderful capacity to have some very Saturnian, in the best sense, in the highest manifestation of the energy, Saturnian relationships that are mature, that are responsible, that are committed, Like the type of friendships you can have with a Saturn high manifestation influence are beautiful relationships, deep relationships, relationships based on respect for one another. So it can actually turn out to be very, very beautiful once the fear is purged. And finally, we've got Saturn in the 12th house. This is an interesting one, and this is again a little bit similar to the first house in that this is where we have fears that we can't explain. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know what they're all about, you know. I use the analogy of falling off a high precipice or a building or something in the first house because your ability to survive was cut short. But when Saturn's in the 12th house, it might be, you know, you're afraid of drowning, and you mightn't have died in a past life, but you might have had some sense of loss. 12th house is a house of loss. So you might have lost your mother in a drowning accident, so therefore you're afraid of drowning because, not because your ability to get my words out, not because your ability to survive was thwarted, but you lost something in a past life. So there is a real fear of loss here. And again, for reasons you can't explain. So you might have lost a family member or a loved one in war, or you might have lost finances and money. You might have lost your hope, your faith, your belief. You might have lost your creativity. You might have lost your ability to express. But there's been some loss in a past life, and now you're afraid of losing again. So you don't get out there and try. You know, let's say you through some circumstances you lost your ability to express yourself in a past lifetime, and so now in this incarnation you're afraid to express yourself because it caused loss in a past lifetime. Probably the easier analogy to understand would be you're afraid to go swimming and to learn how to swim because mum died in front of me when I was a child, when I was swimming, you know, when she was swimming, and I couldn't help, and I didn't know how to help her, and so there's this tremendous sense of loss that now causes karmic fear. I'm not going to swim because that caused me loss in a past life. So you see what I mean? There's stuff that we can't explain, very karmic fears that come into our lives. So you when you've got Saturn here in the 12th house, you need to examine, what am I afraid of losing? And that's the fear that needs to be purged to free you in this incarnation. So you need to look at, what am I afraid of losing? What is it in life that I can't do without? You know, that I'm afraid, not so much can't do without actually. What are you afraid of not having in your life that you cling to, and it's really not helping you, it's really not serving? Such as swimming. You know, you cling to your inability to swim. You won't go to swimming lessons. You don't go and play in the waves. You don't try to do anything like that because you're afraid. You're afraid of losing something. Afraid of losing the fear of swimming. But yeah, what are you clinging to that's holding you back, that's really coming from a fear based on loss? Now, it's not going to be very clear for you guys with Saturn in the 12th because this is a very misty house. It's like there's a fog. And gaining clarity around where this fear is coming from. For example, you're not going to know that your mum died in a past life while you were watching her swim. All you know now is that you're afraid of swimming. So you might not be able to gain clarity around this, but by looking deep within it, what am I afraid of losing? You know, what am I afraid of losing? Am I afraid of losing my life when I'm swimming? Am I afraid of losing my money if I invest in this particular opportunity? Am I afraid of, my children not loving me if I behave in this way or that way? You know, don't focus on finding an answer, because in Saturn in the 12th house, you won't be able to clearly define the answer because it'll be coming very strongly from this past life or a past life. What you need to focus on is, what are you afraid of losing? What is the fear? And that will give you a sense of direction with this Saturn. Now, I did promise that I would talk about, to finish off with, sorry, I'm looking at myself on the screen and thinking this light is appalling. But anyway, what I promised was remedies for Saturn, and what the remedy for Pluto is therapy, which I've talked about. But the remedy for Saturn, well, also the remedy for Pluto, I should also add, is to focus on the polarity point. That's really, really important with Pluto. So let's say you have Pluto in the 8th house, which is about crisis and fear and sexuality. They're all issues of trauma for you. Maybe from past lives you've had trauma around sexual experiences were traumatic, and maybe never having the rug pulled out from under you on a regular basis. Life was full of upheaval and crisis, and oh my God, I'm living through war and famine and poverty and yuck, yuck, yuck. So now the polarity point is where you need to focus. If you've got Pluto, this is just an example, Pluto in the 8th house, you need to focus on the opposite house. Second house, stability, safety, security, having enough, having resources, life being settled and not predictable, but safe. Safe is the ultimate word. It's the opposite of 8th house crisis, isn't it? So that's where, if you have Pluto in the 8th house, you need to focus on the second house of stability and safety and security this lifetime. And we are instinctually, most of us are instinctually working towards that anyhow, especially if we are manifesting at a high level. So they're the two ways we heal Pluto. We look at the polarity point and we work that energy. We try to invoke like more resources, more safety, more security, more stability. That will heal our Pluto in the 8th house. So look at where your Pluto is. What's the opposite house? You work that energy of that house and you can heal Pluto, as well as undertaking therapy and healing. And really what therapy is purging the deep darkness within you and bringing it out into the light where it will not harm. Where once things are exposed to the light, then there's no shadow. Then there's nothing that needs to be purged. Bring out your darkness into the light, and we do that through doing therapy. That's the point. With Saturn, the remedies, there's a couple of remedies. These come from Vedic astrology. We offer, obviously Saturn is doing blockage wherever he sits in the chart, blockage through fear. And the way to redirect that energy of blockage is to fast from something on Saturday, Saturn's day. So by, let's say, I try not to have coffee and tea on a Saturday. Don't always pull it off. I'm a bit of a coffee addict. Was the pity, but I try and go without coffee and tea and caffeine on a Saturday, and most of the time I remember. But I'm saying to Saturn in doing that, Saturn, I know you are the energy of blockage in my life, but I know there's also so much energy of blockage out there. I want to redirect blockage and restriction into something that I choose. So on your day, Saturn, Saturday, I'm going to send that energy of restriction and blockage into coffee and tea. That's what I'm going to fast from. That's where I'm sending the energy of blockage. So please, Saturn, release the energy of blockage and restriction bit by bit, or a lot if you want to, Saturn, in my 5th house of self-love and love in general. So that's how I work with it. You might like to fast from technology. You might like to fast from sex. You might like to fast from one meal a day if your health allows that. Please don't do that if you're not going to be well from missing out on a meal a day. But you can choose what you like, fast from something that you can manage on a long-term basis, not just a once-off. We're talking Saturn is long haul, Saturn is patience, Saturn is perseverance, something that you can fast from will really help release the blockage of Saturn. And the other remedy that we offer with Saturn is to offer service where Saturn sits. And I love this. I get really excited about this one because I think if everybody did this remedy, the world would be turned on its head overnight. If we offer service to where Saturn sits in our chart, then that is a form of healing. So for me, Saturn in the 5th house, it's the house of children. What I can do to heal my Saturn, another thing I can implement is to serve children, and that could be raising money to help children's charities. I could host a morning tea once a month at my workplace. Everybody gives a gold coin donation. I bring in a big sponge cake that I've made. Everyone gives a gold coin donation and we have morning tea together, and then all the money goes to some children's charity, supporting, helping children. 5th house. It could be, 8th house is where your Saturn sits. So one way to offer service would be to help anybody in crisis. Maybe you collect blankets up, you go around to all the op shops and you buy all the op shop blankets you can find, and then you send them to somewhere in the world where they don't have enough, where there's people who just don't even have a blanket to keep them warm. So you help people in crisis, even in little ways, but little but regular, little bite-sized chunks. every, on a regular basis, as a means of service to wherever Saturn sits in your chart. I mean, imagine if everybody was doing this, we would alleviate poverty, we would alleviate pain and suffering, because people would be serving others with a heart that, in the right spot. I want to help you because it actually helps me to do so. There's an exchange going on here. I'm not just offering charity to you because you can't manage or you can't, we are offering service to others as an exchange because I know it's going to help you and I know it's going to help me. It's a two-way energy exchange, which is really, really quite lovely. So they are the two remedies that I employ for Saturn. Yeah, and look, to be quite honest, I really feel they do work. I mean, look at the discovery I have made in the last couple of months regarding my fears. What is at the core of my struggle with love? I've discovered it, and I feel that is Saturn giving me the answer, helping me, releasing the fear that is going on within me. So I hope this helps you. It's been a long video, but there's so much to talk about, and this energy, this time, it's beautiful. And just so you know, it's going to be playing out for the next quite a few months ahead. So this is just, like I said in the beginning, the first chapter, the start of the story. The rest of the novel is going to be written as 2019 progresses. But if you're working at a high level with this energy now, the empowerment, the beauty that will come through this year, through this alignment that everyone's been petrified of, but is really very beautiful. The empowerment that's going to come will really set you free and set you up for the next 9 years of this cycle as it plays out. So let's close with a prayer. Oh, energy of love in the universe, we thank you that you are working through these cycles of our lives to teach us, to heal us, to make us more whole. Thank you for the wisdom of the celestial skies that we can learn from, that we can implement in our lives to help us be better people, and to help us love others better, and to also love ourselves more fully and more wholly. May we embrace this time, this beautiful opportunity we have to write a new story for ourselves, to up-level in our consciousness personally and collectively. We just pray that this time is precious for many, many souls on the earth, so that we can head into our destiny that we long to achieve. And so it is. Thanks for joining me once again. I look forward to next week's video, which hopefully might have a bit more light. We'll see how we go. And yeah, I look forward to joining you then.